Imagine a medical student getting to practice diagnosing a super rare disease, not once, but dozens of times, on a patient who never gets tired, never complains, and can answer every single question with perfect recall. Well, that's not science fiction anymore. Today, we're looking at how AI-powered virtual patients are about to completely change the game for doctor training. We're going to break down a really fascinating new scientific review that maps out this whole new world, and it all kicks off with a huge challenge in medical education.
All right, here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at the training challenge medicine is up against. Then we'll see AI's new prescription for the problem. After that, we'll do a virtual checkup on what the research actually says, dig into the current growing pains, and finally, look at the future of this amazing practice.
So, let's start with the big question. Why do we even need this technology? Well, the bottom line is that teaching doctors how to interact with patients is incredibly expensive, it's a logistical nightmare, and it is really hard to scale up.
Traditionally, there have been two ways to do this. You can use human actors, which is fantastic for realism, but super costly and tough to schedule. Or you can use older, computer-based virtual patients, but even those come with some hefty price tags. I mean, the paper we're looking at notes a development cost of $12 an hour and then over $300 a month just for maintenance. And more importantly, they're scripted, they're repetitive. That really limits how much a student can truly be challenged.
And this is where the new prescription comes in. Virtual patients powered by large language models, or LLMs. And let me tell you, this isn't just some small upgrade. We are talking about a total game changer for how we teach medicine.
The best way to think about it is this. It's basically a flight simulator, but for doctors. It gives them a safe space to practice high-stakes conversations and tricky diagnoses over and over again. They can make mistakes, learn from them, and try again, all in a totally controlled environment, long before they ever step into a room with a real patient.
So, what exactly is an LLM-based virtual patient? Well, unlike the old, clunky models, this thing uses cutting-edge AI to create unscripted, totally realistic conversations. The key word here is dynamic. The AI can react to literally any question you throw at it, creating a truly interactive experience that feels a lot more like the unpredictable nature of a real doctor's appointment.
Okay, so the promise here is enormous, right? But what does the hard evidence actually show us? The paper this is all based on is a massive scoping review of the field, and its findings, they're pretty eye-opening. The review didn't just look at one or two papers. It systematically analyzed 28 different scientific studies to get a really clear snapshot of where things stand. So everything we're about to dive into is grounded in a really solid base of evidence.
Now, here's what's absolutely wild. A staggering 92.9%, almost all, of the research on this topic has been published in just the last 2 years. This isn't just gradual growth, it's an explosion. It tells us we are right at the beginning of a massive technological wave.
So this table gives us a really clear picture of where the action is right now. You can see the field is just completely dominated by OpenAI's GPT models. We're talking nearly 96% of all studies. The main use case? No surprise, it's medical training. And the number one skill they're practicing is history-taking. That's that critical first conversation where a doctor tries to figure out what's going on by asking about symptoms and background. Okay, but let's pump the brakes for a second. Like with any brand new, fast-moving technology, it is definitely not all smooth sailing. The research is very clear about the growing pains and some pretty big hurdles that we need to figure out. And this brings us to what might be the most important question of all. We know these tools are being built, and students seem to like them. But do they actually make them better doctors? Well, as it turns out, the answer is complicated. You see, the review found something they call a significant evaluation gap. Basically, while almost every study measures user experience, was it easy to use? Did you like it? Only a tiny fraction, just about 22%, actually measures objective learning outcomes. So we know students like using these AI patients, but we have very little hard data that proves they're actually learning more effectively from them. And that gap is really just the tip of the iceberg. The research points out a bunch of other big challenges. There aren't any standardized tools to even measure performance consistently. The AI can't simulate nonverbal cues, things like a patient's pained facial expression or a worried tone of voice. Plus, because most of these studies use closed-source models like GPT, it's hard for other researchers to reproduce the results. And on top of all that, huge issues like data privacy and security have kind of been swept under the rug so far. So, with all these challenges on the table, where do we go from here? What does the road ahead look like?
The good news is, the review doesn't just point out problems, it lays out a really clear path forward for this technology to actually reach its incredible potential.
The paper boils it down to 4 pillars for the future. First is model diversity. We need to explore open-source models so research can be transparent and reproducible. Second, we need enhanced realism. That means integrating speech and video to finally capture those missing nonverbal cues. Third, robust security has to be baked in from the start, not added as an afterthought. And finally, the whole field needs more scientific rigor, using validated frameworks to finally close that evaluation gap and prove these tools work.
And I think this is probably the most important point of all. The researchers make it very clear that this technology isn't here to replace human teachers or real-world training. Instead, it should be seen as an incredibly powerful supplement, a new, valuable tool in the medical education toolkit.
So this all leaves us with one final, pretty mind-bending question. As this technology matures and becomes a standard part of training, is it possible that a future doctor's most important training partner won't be a person at all, but an AI? The answer to that is going to shape the next generation of medicine.